Hey, my name is Cross Keys Royal. I'm the children's director at East Ministry Presbyterian Church on Trenum. Been there 15 years this fall.
In Genesis 2, what abstract values are elevated or celebrated?
So at Genesis 2, the focus narrows down on specifically first the male that God creates from the ground, and then the female that God creates from the male. And it's going to go in a little bit different direction than Genesis 1's methods and themes, although there's some overlap between the two as well. I think both Adam, so is the creature that is created from the red earth, the male, and then Eve, who's created from Adam's rib in the account. Both of them still embody good. There's an inherent innocence about them and a goodness. They're there in the garden to work. There's a vocational call. They're not just going to laze around all day. And they have jobs to do in the garden, but their lives are pretty carefree. Everything's kind of taken care of for them, provided that they abide by a few rules that God sets out about not eating certain pieces of fruit from trees and that kind of thing. And they're there to be stewards, right? So take care of the creation, take care of the animals that are entrusted to them, do some work, a little bit of work in the garden, and live in that innocence. So they eat of the fruit, Eve first, and then Adam, tempted by the snake. And the snake, the traditional Western Christian thought has the snake personified as Satan and sin coming into this innocent creation. So Adam and Eve in this carefree creation, they're their own undoing by eating this fruit. They have knowledge of good and evil, and that knowledge makes them ashamed, so they have to wear clothes at that point. They're embarrassed about being naked. Before they didn't know they were naked, now they know, so they have to wear clothes. God makes them the clothes, and then with this knowledge, they're kicked out of the garden. So there's a fall from innocence there. That carefree existence is gone. They have to work hard now to till the land to get their food. They have to. There's pain in childbirth. God tells them about, and that Eve will have to experience. The snake becomes their mortal enemy. So there's these punishments for the snake too. So things kind of flip, and what was an innocent life becomes one of hardship and struggle. Although there's still moments of beauty in it too, and it just becomes a lot more nuanced and complicated than it used to be.
Why do you think that Adam was created before Eve?
The word, so Adam it's a play on words. It's kind of a pun in the Hebrew, and it's meant to make you think of the words red clay. So Adam, I can't remember the specific word for red clay, but it sounds like Adam. And so God, the Hebrew talks about God fashioning the clay like a potter would, and making this creation out of the earth. Now there's an interesting theory that says that at that point it's male and female kind of one together. There's a couple of theologians that have looked at the verbiage of this and say it's male and female one together, and then once God creates woman, which the verbiage uses more of as not a potter, but as a tool, because she's taken out with the rib, which is a hard kind of thing, right? So it's more like a tool is made. But once woman is taken out of the male, then I think the language becomes more specifically man and woman. And so the hint is that this creation is created out of the ground. It's kind of male and female, and then bifurcated when woman is taken out. So the point of this all being is that there's been times in history where different religious cultures or settings have used that to say men are created first, men are superior to women. But I think the text, if you read along with it, you find out that she's supposed to be a helper, and that there's a lot of support, saying they're supposed to support each other and help each other, and one is not more important than the other. But it's easy for people to read in what they want to read in sometimes, and if you're in a particular town where men are running the show, it's easy to look at the text and say, oh, men are created first, therefore we're supposed to run things still. But if you really look at the text, I think there's a lot more equality suggested.
How do you feel about the characterization of divine power in the story?
Initially, it's used for good. Just like Genesis 1, where God creates this good and great world and super creative in it. Genesis 2 is the same thing. This garden has been created. Everything's so wonderfully rich and detailed and good and innocent, celebrating God. And then once that comes undone, you see God get some very human characteristics. Like at one point, after they've eaten the fruit, it says God is walking through the garden. So there's a very human thing there. God is out taking a stroll in the garden. And when he sees what they've done, it makes God mad and disappointed. So suddenly we have these two very relatable emotions, because we've all had people let us down or shock us or surprise us in ways we don't want to be. And God suddenly has those things too. And so there's a little bit of a switch there from this omnipresent, super creative God that created the world for good and everything's wonderfully innocent, to this God that has anger and disappointment. And there's a punishment to be given. So God becomes like a parent at that point. God's been caring for them all along, but it's been very benevolent, and all of a sudden you have this punishment come in too, where it's life-changing for them. They get kicked out of the garden, and this is something that can't be taken back. And their lives are going to be one of struggle and a lot more complicated than it used to be. God is still a parent, and God is still walking with them through all of that, and still will even after they leave the garden. But the nature of parenting is grown. You can see, and it's a lot more deep and detailed than just being a simple, all benevolent caretaker, easy caretaking job as it was before. Suddenly you have these humans who have fallen now, and their lives are going to constantly frustrate you and draw you in to intervene sometimes, please you sometimes, make you mad at other times. So I think the character of God becomes richer at the end of after they get kicked out of Eden, more so than it was at the start.